Going on, everybody? I know why you're here. You know why you're here. We all know why you're here. And that's for some top-notch fantasy football content. And us guys at the Fantasy Council, we're going to bring it to you. What's going on, Miles and Rob?
Doing great. Excited for week 3.
Yes, sir. Coming up hot. My Giants just got crushed last night, but I'm coping with it. So excited to look forward to the other games.
It's going to be a great week. A lot of info we're going to get this week. But bring you guys some start sits for week 3. And, Rob, get right into it.
It's a guy, been harping on him all off season and the beginning of the season. I like Jaylen Warren as a start next week, especially if your RB2 is a little uncomfortable and you got Jaylen Warren hanging out on the bench. Hasn't had a huge game yet. I think he could break through that at any time. Like I've said a million times, I genuinely think he's just the better running back than Najee Harris right now. He's starting to eat into that workload quite a bit. He's definitely going to benefit from how Najee has looked so far. He hasn't looked good. So, with that said, I do believe any competent coaching staff would try to get the other guy more looks when they're not getting any efficiency out of their lead back. I've said it enough. He's got plenty of receiving upside. And with Deontay Johnson out, I think he is a candidate to possibly lead the team in targets on any given week. And I definitely like Jaylen Warren this week against the Raiders. They are the 32nd ranked defense, allowing fantasy points against running backs. And I think it's a pretty no-brainer start, whether it's in your flex or your RB2 spot. I love Jaylen Warren this week.
All right. I'll kick it off with my first start of the week, Joshua Kelley. Last week was rough. If you spot started him, he only had 13 carries for 39 yards. But it was against a stout Titans run defense. This week he'll be taking on the Vikings, who allowed over 2 yards against Philly. And it should be a high-scoring game. It's the highest over-under of the week at 54. So I think Joshua Kelley is a solid RB2 play this week.
Yeah, for sure. I'm hit with my first start. Sticking in L.A. with the Charger. It's going to be Mike Williams. Coming off a huge game last week. 8 catches, 13 targets, 83 yards. And also Eckler was out last week. He'll be out again this week, just announced today. And as Miles said, they're playing the Vikings. It's looking like it's going to be just a shootout, which we love to have those kind of guys in fantasy. Like I said, Eckler's out. Love those 13 targets. And for me, Mike Williams is a top 12 play, wide receiver 1, locked and loaded. I could see a huge week from Mike Williams.
I like it. Hopefully it does, because I have him starting in a few spots. So with that, I'll move on to my second must start this week, and it's the guy who had dropped a goose egg in week 1. He's getting a lot of negative press. It's going to be Drake London from the Atlanta Falcons. Everyone wants to coin this offense as all they know how to do is run. Desmond Ridder can't throw the ball. Desmond Ridder looked honestly fine last week when he was throwing the ball. He could get it done for the most part, and it's nice to see that because Drake London is probably his favorite target. At this point, he's got kind of the longest tenure with Drake London. When he stepped into the starting role last year, Kyle Pitts was injured. So he's definitely got the longest tenure with Drake London. We love the prospect, Drake London. We think he's a great wide receiver. Elite prospect, honestly. Looked good as a rookie, great as a rookie. And they're playing the Lions this week. They're at the Lions. So I think this is a game compared to week 1 and 2 where it was close the whole time. They were either ahead or slightly behind at all points in the game. I think they're going to have to lean on the pass a little more this game. I think the Lions, we know Lions have a pretty good offense, so there will most likely be a point where they're trailing and they need to catch back up, get some points. And when they are throwing the ball in order to cover up some points, I think Drake London will be the guy. So I definitely like Drake London as a start this week. He gave you a nice week last week. I think he's going to continue on that trend this week as well.
For sure. This is kind of also my last chance that I'm giving Kyle Pitts. I think he could have a good game this week. And it's really my last chance before I start looking at other options from waivers. But I'll go into my second start of the week, Elijah Moore, who's had 16 targets through 2 games. He had 7 in week 1 and 9 in week 2. He's been getting some design carries, which is always cool to see. He's getting involved. Like they want him touching the ball, which you love to see. Also, the loss of Chubb could have a significant impact on the passing game because they might have to pass more. They won't be able to run as successfully. And they are taking on that Titans D, which is very strong as the run. So they'll probably have to lean on the pass. Yeah, and that's all I got as far as Elijah Moore.
Yeah, love it. Love Elijah Moore. My second start is on my dynasty guy, Zay Flowers, playing the Colts this week. He's on pace right now for 111 receptions, I think 1,190 yards, which is ridiculous. It's the Ravens' franchise record for receptions. Right now, he has a 27% target share through 2 games, which is elite. That Colts secondary he's playing this week ranks, I think, second to last just against fantasy points for receivers. Odell's out, and they were finally using him downfield more last week. He caught like a 55-yard touch or a catch. Love Zay Flowers. I could see a big touchdown this week, but definitely a guy that's going to get you probably minimum floor of 8 points. Has a huge ceiling. Just love his matchup. Love Zay Flowers this week.
Yeah, I agree. I'm actually pretty excited to get Zay Flowers in my starting lineup if I do have him sitting around in any leagues. But with that being said, I'll move on to my first sit, which is it's going to be Minnesota running back Alexander Mattison. You know, they just brought in Cam Akers. This coaching staff has said, yeah, we like Mattison. We think he's our guy. But, like, when you're bringing in a guy like Cam Akers, who's been a starter in the league before, I feel like it kind of at least says a little bit something about your trust in Alexander Mattison to, you know, carry a workhorse role. He's been wildly inefficient so far as both a runner and a receiver. He's shown lack of hands so far, dropping passes that are easily catchable pretty consistently, actually. And he doesn't have enough receiving volume in general to kind of cover up those running inefficiencies that he does have. He's in a good offense, which you would think there's touchdown upside, but the Vikings only ran the ball. They lost a close game, high-scoring game, too, to the Eagles last week. They only ran the ball a total of 9 times in that game, which is pretty alarming if you have Alexander Mattison. So obviously we know the Vikings love to pass the ball. You'd like to see Mattison get some kind of workload, like 9 carries, and he didn't even have all of them. And he's inefficient with those touches, and he's not a great receiver. He's playing against the Chargers this week, which you look kind of looking for another high-scoring game, in my opinion. I'd be surprised if this is a low-scoring game. But even with that being said and the touchdown upside being there whatsoever, I don't like Mattison at all this week. Honestly, going forward in general, I don't like him. But I think a lot of people are kind of still clinging out to hope for Mattison. And those of you who are doing so or looking to do so in week 3, if you have any other decent options on the bench, I'm looking to start them over Mattison this week. I'm not a huge fan of him.
All right, my first sit will be DeAndre Hopkins of the Titans. He saw his snap share drop about 20% from week 1, and his target share dropped dramatically from 39% to about 20%. It could be due to the ankle injury he's been nursing, which is a concern too because he hasn't practiced at all this week. He also didn't practice leading up to week 2's game, so I expect to see him out there, but he's not someone I'm looking to start if he's not 100%, especially against a very good defense in the Browns, who have been pressuring the QB at a pretty high rate. And they've actually played the second most man coverage so far this season, which D-Hop has noticeably struggled to separate from at this point in his career. So I'm kind of out on D-Hop this week.
Yeah, I read something that said he had like a full practice early in the week, limited, and then out didn't practice the last 2, so not something you like to see at all. My first sit is Terry McLaurin. In general, I just am not in on any Commanders receivers. Eric Bieniemy, you know, OC, came from Kansas City, where like Mahomes and them spread the ball a ton. You know, it's great for winning football games. The Chiefs won the Super Bowl, but when it comes to fantasy, we don't love it. Terry McLaurin has 10 targets through 2 games, which is just not ideal where you drafted him for your wide receiver 2-ish for most of you guys. That's like a 15% target share, which is just not it. And we'll see what happens. It continues, but just not a guy I'm confidently starting this week. He had that one kind of biggish touchdown that kind of bailed out his points. Just not a fan overall at all.
Yeah, I agree. I'm also out on my Washington wide receivers until I see something else more encouraging down the line. Definitely still giving him a chance, but not this week. My final sit is going to be James Conner. He's playing the Cowboys this week. I know a lot of people, like, there have been some running back injuries, a lot of running backs underperforming so far. So understand that a lot of you guys are probably going to have to start James Conner in some way, shape, or form. But if you can find a way to sit him, if you have another serviceable back on the bench, I think I'm looking to get him in there over James Conner. Listen, I love the volume that he's getting so far, but this is a tough matchup. I wouldn't be surprised if the Cardinals didn't score a touchdown in this game. And that's something that you're obviously looking for when you're starting a running back is those goal line touches. They're probably not going to have too many plays in the red zone against Dallas. They're a great defense. He's been one of my avoids all offseason. As running backs as old as him, once they get some tread on the tires, they usually start to get more and more inefficient as the season goes on. Luckily, it still is early. I wouldn't be surprised to start seeing some of those inefficiencies come up sooner than later, given his age and his injury history and stuff. But they'll be trailing. They'll probably be passing a lot against the Cowboys, trying to get back in the game that I expect them to lose by a decent margin. And, yeah, James Conner, especially against the Cowboys defense, not a guy I'm looking to start this week at all. If you have another option, please get him in there. But like I said, understandably, he has looked okay through the first 2 weeks fantasy-wise. He's doing okay as your RB2, but I don't like the matchup.
Okay, my second sit is going to be Dameon Pierce, running back for the Texans. Their O-line has been essentially non-existent so far, so that has not helped Pierce, who has averaged 3.45 yards per carry and 2.07 yards per carry in his first 2 games, respectively, which is gross. And on top of that, he hasn't even played more than 50% of snaps yet. I think he had a 45% snap share in week 1 and week 2, which when you draft Dameon Pierce, it's kind of a volume play on that Texans offense. And then I saw an interesting stat. He's only played 57% of first and second downs, which is an alarmingly low number, and he's played a measly 19% of snaps on third downs. And then the game script also isn't going to be good for him. Texans probably playing from behind against the Jags, and he's not much of a pass catcher, so definitely out on Pierce this weekend.
Yeah, they got that 3-headed backfield now with Dare back, just not playing third down snaps. Bad game script's terrible. My last guy is going to be Jerome Ford, a popular waiver wire ad this week. I'm actually a fan of Jerome Ford. I think he looked great when he was playing. I like him going forward. I don't think Kareem Hunt actually impacts him that much at all. I think he's their main guy. Kareem Hunt was already showing kind of shades of regression and being old last year. He's more of a insurance piece, I think, for them. But he has a tough matchup this week versus the Titans, number 1 run D in the league against fantasy running backs. I just don't see him having this huge week that everyone kind of added him for. I'm not saying to drop him. He's a great ad. He'll be great down the stretch, I think. But for this week alone, if you have some better options other than Jerome Ford, I think you can take them. I mean, he had a huge play last week, kind of savaged this week a little bit. I think he's a sit this week for me.
Yeah, I was actually pretty excited. I wanted Jerome Ford to be one of my sits. Unfortunately, Chris already claimed him. But I think this week I do like Jerome Ford, the player. He got a lot of buzz as a rookie last year, even though he wasn't getting a huge workload last year, obviously being behind Chubb and Kareem Hunt. But I think he's a pretty interesting guy, and I think after this week against the really tough Titans defense, I think he's a really intriguing buy low after this week if he does do what we expect him to do and kind of dud out this week and look inefficient. And I mean, down the line, I think he'll be a very fantasy viable RB2. So
yeah, definitely. And kind of just a random little stat I want to throw out. One of Rob's starts was Drake London this week, and only 2 Falcons receivers have targets this year through 2 games. So if they are throwing the ball, which they probably will be in this game, like Rob said, Drake London's the guy they're going to throw the ball to. But you guys got anything else to add, just in general?
I'm all good.
Awesome. That's been it from us guys at the Fantasy Council. Comment, subscribe. Let us know what you guys think. Some of your start sits this week. And, peace.
Peace.